Real estate has always been a hot topic amongst investors. On this channel, we have previously discussed real estate as an asset class, enumerating the associated pros and cons. Being my age, I have a lot of friends who are either newly married or will be getting married soon. A common question they all have is, should we look to purchase a house, or should we rent it? Now, there are lots of videos available on YouTube that will teach you whether to rent or to buy. Problem is, a lot of that content is essentially theory and has little to no practical use. Secondly, a lot of jargon is thrown around purposefully to give the impression of high knowledge, but once again it doesn't do much for the viewer. In this video, I will help you decide to buy or rent based on a simple formula that anyone can apply, and get the answer immediately. So, stay tuned till the end. This one is a very practical video. If required, you can pause the video and make your notes. Before we begin, make sure to support the channel by clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Now, this method is a slight oversimplification, intended for quick decision making. What we will do is compare the costs of renting with that of buying. This will determine the better deal for us. The type of costs we will be comparing are going to be the non-recoverable cost. Let's start with renting first. The non-recoverable cost of renting is essentially the rent itself. For example, if your rent is 30,000 rupees a month, then that cost is irrecoverable. The money goes to the landlord and we are not going to recover it. Buying a house. Buying a house also has non-recoverable associated costs. Let's check them out. The first non-recoverable cost is property tax plus maintenance. We have to pay an annual property tax, and then, of course, there are maintenance costs as well. These include painting, plumbing work, and other kinds of repairs. If you live in an apartment building, you probably have security costs, building maintenance fees, society costs, etc. If we take a conservative average, it is safe to assume that maintenance would be at least 1% of the total home value. So, for calculation's sake, we will consider property tax plus annual maintenance to be 1% of the total home value. A 1 crore rupee house would, therefore, cost 1 lakh annually for property tax plus maintenance. The second non-recoverable cost will be the cost of capital. Try and understand this carefully. The cost of capital for most people is primarily the interest you pay on the loan. Most people buy their property with a loan. Now, the AMI that you pay has two components, the principal and the interest. The principal amount gets you the house, so it is a recoverable cost. You have recovered that amount by getting the house. The house then also appreciates in value. The interest, on the other hand, is the non-recoverable amount that you will not get any benefit from. Let's do some rough calculations, shall we? Let's say you take out a loan of 80% at 8% interest, so, for a 1 crore house that becomes an 80 lakh rupee loan. Now, another component of the cost of capital would be the remaining 20% payment, in the form of equity. This is the opportunity cost that you should consider. This means instead of putting your 20 lakhs in the house, if you would have invested that money elsewhere, you would have gotten a return on that. That is also a cost that cannot be ignored. So, to summarize, the following is your cost of capital. 80% debt at 8% interest plus 20% equity at 12%. Now, to calculate the total cost of capital, we will have to do the weighted average cost of capital. You do that by multiplying 0.8 by 8%, which gives 6.4%. 0.2 multiplied by 12%, which gives 2.4%. So, the total weighted average cost of capital comes out to be 6.4 plus 2.4 equals 8.8%. This is also called the nominal cost of capital, and it includes inflation. We encounter a problem now. If we decide to buy the house, its value will appreciate. If we rent the house, over time the rent amount will also increase, so it's not an apple-to-apple comparison. For an accurate calculation, we will have to eliminate the inflation component from our nominal cost of capital. Let's assume our initial rent of 30,000 rupees stays the same, inflation is 0. We will simultaneously have to remove inflation from our nominal cost of capital as well. When your house appreciates in value, it does so alongside a rise in inflation. Historically speaking, appreciation of a property is similar to the inflation rise, unlike the stock market, which tends to beat inflation in the long run. For example, if inflation rises by 6%, the real estate value also goes up by a similar number. Now, in order to determine the real cost of capital, we will have to remove inflation, assumed to be 6%, from the nominal cost of capital. We get 8.8 or let's say 9% minus the inflation rate of 6%. We get 3%, this is our real cost of capital. We have removed inflation from both the rent as well as the buy. Now, one argument you can make is, I don't need a loan, I can outright buy the house, in which case your equity will become 100%. The calculation still stands. So, the total annual cost of buying comes down to 1% plus 3% equals 4%. Decision time. If annual rent is less than 4% of the total home value, then it is better to rent. Similarly, if the annual rent is greater than 4% of the total home value, it is better to buy. For a 1 crore house, 4% would be 4 lakhs. If the rent is 30,000 per month, that means 360,000 per annum. In the above example, rent is slightly less than 4% of the total home value. If the margins are this close, it is better to buy. But, if the rent was 20,000 or the home value was 2 crores, it would have been a different decision. I hope the concept is clear. The good news is, the same rule can be applied even if the house is an investment for you, and will not be used by you. If you believe you can find a tenant to pay you more than 4% of the total property value in annual rental payments, then as an investment, the house is a good deal. This is why commercial properties that give up to 7% rent are preferred by real estate investors in comparison to residential properties. So, by now the formula should be clear to you. We discussed how to calculate the non-recoverable cost for both rent and buy options. We then compared the two and adjusted for inflation. And finally, we derived the 4% rule to determine the better option for us. This brings us to the end of the video. If you wish to learn how I make these videos, do check the links to Pictory.ai and vidIQ in the description. If you like the video, make sure to share it, and also subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves and your families. God bless us all. Thank you.